Today I wanted to talk about banks. It's a very long discussed topic. I remember since 1974 I have been asking myself and asking my colleagues, how is it that we allow banks to ruin the economy? What is it that makes banks such special animals that they have this privilege to ruin people like me and you? Why do we allow them? Why do governments allow them? If you think of a profession like auditors, this profession is controlled by a professional body, and no auditor can go and work as an auditor without being professionally qualified to show to the world that this person is competent enough to carry out this profession. The same with doctors, the same with lawyers, the same with quantity surveyors, the same with taxi drivers in some countries. Taxi drivers cannot just be taxi drivers without being professionally qualified and belonging to a professional body that regulates this profession. And the question is, why banks are not regulated by a professional body? Anyone can be a banker. There is no legal requirement for a banker to pass any process, any exams, to have a qualification to be a banker. Why do I ask this question? If you look at any bank's balance sheet, and you look at the assets and the liabilities, and just to clarify, in a balance sheet, all you see is what assets the entity, the bank, the company possesses. And the liabilities show the source, the financing, the sources of finance for these assets to come into existence. If you look at any bank's balance sheet, you will see that the financing from the shareholders is a tiny little percentage of the total financing, which comes mainly from you and me, the depositors. We deposit our money into these banks. We think we have our money there, but really, if all of us today we go to the banks to withdraw our cash, the banks will simply close the doors. There is not enough cash to pay back the depositors. Let me go around a bit. If a company goes to a bank for a loan, the bank will usually refuse the loan if the company is highly geared. What does highly geared mean? It means that if the company's shareholders are not investing a big percentage of the financing into the company, the bank is not willing to advance a loan. So I'm coming back to the banks. Why are therefore the banks not financed in the same way as they demand from their clients? Why are they so highly geared? And I'm not talking about 50 or 60 or 70% gearing. I'm talking about 2,000% gearing. Shareholders' financing is this much, and the depositors is a multiple of what the shareholders are financing into the banks. Very good question. I wrote an article once, and I was suggesting that all of us should turn up to the banks one morning. All of us demand our deposits. The banks will try to close the doors. We struggle and we keep the doors open and we'll go into the bank. And we demand that we become the owners, because we are effectively the owners of the bank. because we do actually the financing of the whole operations. Now remember that the bank is a private company, usually, and the shareholders are making a return on their investment, which I am actually financing this return for them to make the money. But let's stop arguing about this and go to the damaging of the economy. If the whole economy has only $100, the banks know that they don't need all of this 100. They lend a big proportion of this 100. They lend it to companies or individuals that want to use the money. And when the borrower takes the money, they spend it, and this spending comes back as deposits to the banks. So the banks again have 100, and they know they don't need all of it, so they loan out more, and it's a vicious circle. But the actual cash available in the economy, and it's most of it in the banks, is only 100. This is why when we go to the bank, if all of us go to the bank to get the 100, all of us means maybe 6,000. There's only 100, so we cannot get the money back. That is for very high importance to governments. Governments borrow from the banks, from the central bank, but effectively it's from the banks. So when governments issue paper, which is called government bonds, they actually get money from the banks. So this is our money. So they borrow from the banks, hoping that one day, from the tax revenue, they will repay this money to the banks. So it is of great interest to the governments that there is a banking system. We have allowed, over the centuries, many times, the banks to fail. But in Cyprus, in 2013, the government, the European Union, allowed the Cyprus banks to tell the depositors, sorry guys, but from the 5,000 that you have in the bank, the 3,000, forget it. We will not give it back. We write it off. You only have 2,000. So legally, the banks have stolen our money. Now, how did we come to that situation? How did we reach the point where the banks either had to fail or to take the money from the depositors? I think it's quite simple. A banker that makes a loan should be a professional person that knows what this person is doing. This person should analyze the borrower to understand where the money is going, what is the money going to be put in, will there be a reasonable, sensible investment with this borrowing, will there be a return, can I see the budgets, and do the budgets look realistic? How will my lending be paid back? When will it be paid back? And will I be able to make a small margin out of this lending to this entity? But bankers are not professionally qualified. Usually they are not strictly regulated. So they can advance loans to friendly customers, they can advance loans to their families, they can advance loans to their colleagues, they can advance loans because they want to show that they are making loans. By the way, the asset loans in the balance sheet of a bank is the most profitable asset on the balance sheet. So obviously any bank is highly motivated to advance as many loans as possible. When you advance the loan, the interest that you're charging on the loan, even if you don't receive it during the year, you still show it as income in the financial statements. So the revenue shows big, the profits show big, the value of the share shows big, your bonus is big. Next 2-3 years, when the loans are not being repaid, they are being cancelled, the bank has a problem, you have taken your bonuses as a bank director, you are in some distant island on a permanent holiday, you cannot be reached anymore because you did your job properly, so to say. The bank fails, but you, as a bank manager or director, you have taken your bonuses, your salaries, your pensions, and you have exited the bank. Adam Smith, the first ever economist, has warned us about the banking system. Talking about the 2013 incident with the Cyprus bail-in, surprisingly, people simply lost their money and nobody did anything. You didn't see people going out in the streets and burning buildings and burning the parliament, burning the ministries. People just stayed home, worrying, panicking, silent, and nobody has done anything about this in Cyprus. It could be a message that since it worked in Cyprus and it happened peacefully, maybe we should try it next time in Greece, maybe in Spain, maybe in Portugal, maybe everywhere. So this has been my worry. I have been questioning this for the last few decades in my articles, in my conversations with colleagues, with central bankers, with a couple of ministers, but nobody seems to want to do anything about it. But it's something for you to think, something for you to review, to consider. Maybe one of you guys one day will come and do something real and save the planet from this industry. Thank you very much.